Check Like a Pro. The stock market under Trump's first year back edition. We're going to cover the overall stock market, the S&P 500 with daily candlesticks. Each one of these red or green bars is daily candlestick. We're also going to go over some averages comparative to other presidents. But first we're going to start with what was the end result. And then we're also going to go over right here, this chart here showing the last 20 years, the presidents in their terms, with their 4-year average for that term right here on the bottom. 15.7%. It's probably your first time seeing that. And what I will say, it beats that average right there. A little bit less than younger Trump. It beats that average right there. It beats that average right there. It really beats that average right there. So that's very, very, that's solid. So if you were looking to do some bashing, you have no facts to go with right there. Figures. Now these figures don't take into account of dividends. So dividends would, on average, raise those numbers up about 2%. But I just went with the raw numbers. So if your 401k is above 14%, good for you, man. Next, we need to go right here. If anybody that's going to talk about facts or, hey, call himself fact check like a pro, they're probably going to be packing some sources, right? So if you got anything for me after the end of this video, at least come with something like this, some sources, rather than like a video you heard or some podcaster or influencer or some politician. But these are some of the sources. Also, I do think that's a really good investing club. I've been a member of that it's like $250 a month. It pays for itself, but a lot of good info there. And then, so what we're going to do is President Trump starts right here at 59.96. That's where the S&P 500 was at the morning it opened when he took over. And we need to address two issues here. The first one we're going to address is the economy that he inherited. Now, I don't know what you've heard. I've got an idea. I've heard some fairy tales, but we don't do fairy tales. We do facts. He inherited a robust economy, according to these sources like that and nonpartisan economists. Unemployment rate was at 4.0%. Okay, facts, statistics don't lie. That's good. GDP growth solid, 2.8%. Again, more stats that give you reality. Inflation at 3.0%. We're looking for the target of 2%. But it had been trending down since, when did it really start trending? Around December of 2022, when it was way up there. Painful. Consumer confidence, strong. Job creation pace, steady. The overall outlook. The overall outlook was above trend growth with cooling price pressures, low joblessness, and high investor confidence, signaling a strong foundation. So if you're hearing that he took out or that they inherited a bad economy, you're being lied to. If you like that, that's your choice. We'll get down to this other thing I need to read to you, but we got to start right here first. February is right there. And then March, after about 6 weeks or so, a lot of tariff talk. Everybody wants to know what's going to go down with the tariffs. We've heard it all the time during the campaign. And you can see where investor sentiment went. It started sliding down for about 3 weeks, little pullback. In my book, Mirage of Genius, we have 2 sections that are, one of them covers Liberation Day, which is this day. It started right there and went up. And then the next section right after covers the day after, where you can see what happened. And basically what happened is those who hyped you up on the big tariffs and Liberation Day, not that tariffs are a bad thing, all right? It's fact time, right? But what they did was, knowing that what the likely result would be, They did not announce the tariffs to the press until after the market closed on April 6th or whatever day that was, immediately after the market closed that day. In the after hours and overnight futures trading, pretty much all selling off, a big sell-off. And then the following day right here, it opened right here and finished down there on day 3, which really is day 2, because this is when they know about tariffs, right? So we're going to call this day 2 and call the actual Liberation Day, Liberation Day prep. But anyway, another big down day. What happened here, and it's good, reality can only last so long, or delusion can only last so long when there's consequences. And and delusion started to meet reality right in here, and President Trump changed the policy to allow foreign countries 90 days to work out deals. And so that changed investor sentiment, and you see where the market went from there. But we're going to go ahead and do this, because some of you might have came into this video after hearing probably daily how foreign countries pay for tariffs. I'll explain to you why that's not only totally false, but you're allowing people to directly lie to you, and I think you like it. U.S. importers, American companies, pay the tariffs directly to the U.S. government, not foreign exporters. They write a check. A McDonald's going to import a bunch of French fries from Canada. McDonald's going to write a check to the United States Department of Treasury. Economic studies show U.S. consumers and businesses bear 80 to 100% of the cost through higher prices and squeezed profits. Foreign exporters absorb only a small share, 0 to 20%, often closer to 0 initially, by rarely lowering their prices. So understand, foreign countries are not bringing in any money. You heard that term too, bringing in, a subtle lie in a sentence used often. It's not bringing in. And here it is. Tariffs act like a tax on Americans, raising cost for everyday goods with little burden on China or other countries. Again, the burden would be, damn, we're going to be selling them less stuff. But the bottom line is, if you didn't know, now you know. And if you want to argue about it or challenge it, make sure you come with something related to sourcing, like sources. Kind of like going to court. It's kind of like claiming something happened big and going to 60 courts and say, hey, election was stolen. And then you go to 60 courts and there's no evidence. Well, and they throw it out. We need evidence, okay? But the bottom line here is, look, 15.7% is good, man. For me personally, just whatever the drama, I do have issues with people with zero integrity that take advantage of people who are not media literate. But you know what? It's the economy, stupid. And 15.7, that's good. Not golden age, but bronze medals. If you ever take your kids like a wrestling tournament or watch the Olympics, a bronze medal still gets on the medal stand. Okay? So that's good. Last but not least, a quick overview. Where's that at? Where is that? I can't even. Oh, here we are, way over here. I got to get. There we go. Real quick, covers the Philippine drug war. I think it's really good. Right here, especially for my MAGA patriots. Patriots, if you don't watch, if this book doesn't get your red, white, and blue veins flowing like a tsunami, you're woke, and that's the problem. So this is you'll like that. Here we got the Rockefellers and Carnegies after World War II buying up media companies and donating money to influence journalism schools, and that's how we got to where we are today. Over here, Mirage of Genius, especially for 100% facts. Find a misstatement by me in here. I'll take it off Amazon. Nothing But Facts, a good read. Actually, this has been #1 seller only because it's one of those partisan. See, I learned before doing that I like to write just reality, but partisan stuff sells, man. They got these hardcore right-wingers or hardcore left-wingers. Tells you a lot about society today and our media. I'm going to do this one. This is recently released, and I think this is a great book. I think it should be in junior high and high school classrooms, man, because it coaches at the end of each, and it's non-inflammatory. No criticizing, and calling people out, dude. It just shows you how our current media landscape. You got your local news, but you got your cable news, podcasters, and influencers. And then you got truth over here. But each section, it goes through, it describes a scenario that they had talked about. And it just, it's a good for developing some habits and some techniques. As easy as hitting Google. You're right. But anyway, paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And this is my very first book. We go back to when I was first year, just after 1 year in the Army, Desert Storm out there in the desert. That AM/FM radio that I'd won in that boxing tournament we had in December, that was a really good tool to have because a lot of uncertainty. Imagine your first year in the military, you're going up against what was known as the world's third largest army, and you get Baghdad Betty on the line, and she's talking about how bad we're doing, how bad it's going to be, trying to discourage us, right? Propaganda, false information. But then, aside from the reports that we'd get from our leadership and watching planes fly over in the air and bomb the enemy, and then like the BBC News or military, whatever network that was, getting updates, that was my first good lesson. So we do talk about foreign disinformation in here, and I think that's going to be a wrap, folks. It's Sunday morning here. Went to church before having breakfast. So I'm hungry, and have a good day.